So I'll start by drawing a single curl of hair, just a section of it. And I'll show you that when you're doing hair, you can just do it all in different sections. You do it in clumps. So hair might be all one uniform direction, real smooth, and just in one section, or it might be in thousands of little ones, which would be the more tedious job. You can see I leave a reflection that goes crossways to the direction of the hair. And each section of hair, like in this curl that I did, which I just mapped it out the same way you would do a ribbon or a banner, you know, and then there's a reflection of each individual section that travels crossways to that section. So you'll have your reflective area going different directions according to which segment of hair it's on, always trying to stay at kind of a 90-degree angle to the direction of the hair. So now let's switch over and try to do it on a person's head. I'll start by mapping out a simple kind of generic face here, and then I'll just do basic clumps of hair, segments of hair, and I'm going to start from where there's typically a cowlick on most people's head, which is the left or right side. Actually, pretty much everyone has a cowlick on the left and right side. It's a pattern, and so they'll be slightly different from each other, but I'm going to use this guy's right side cowlick that comes from that top ball of his head and just draw all the hair out from there and do this kind of wild Asian looking. And so you can see I've made several different sections of hair, and I'll map out, I'll make that reflective area traveling across all of the hairs of each individual section. So here I just made one over on the left coming down. You see that reflection will not travel all the way through into the next section of hair. Each section will have its own reflective area, and I'm just choosing where to put that. It's totally dependent on where the light is in the room, and you can just make that up. You don't even have to think about where the light is. Just choose where to put that stripe of reflection going across. It typically won't go all the way to the very edge of the head of hair, though, because the light isn't stretching all the way around the backside. But I mean, most everywhere the light is facing the object, you're going to have that reflection going right across it. So remembering that each section is going to be slightly different, it's going to have a slightly different angle, I'm going through and here's a fun trick. Use the eraser to make new sections of hair over the top. It's a lot easier than doing it all the first pass with the pencil. You can do one layer and then come back and do another layer with an eraser. An eraser is a great tool. And for those of you that didn't like me drawing that whole eye without using an eraser, this is to make you feel better. I do use an eraser. And so you can make whole new clumps of hair on top of the old ones. And you can see that the dark sections are touching the light sections, and that's because each individual section of hair that I make has its own little reflection going right across the middle of it. So another thing that I'll know, you see me getting kind of crazy here with that wild hair going across. I mean, you can put it anywhere, but this is getting a little bit too busy. It's not looking so good. It's probably because I'm really not a good hairstylist. But I will say that when you do the reflection, I've got all of it coming from kind of the center, from that same central point where that cowlick is on this person's head. And so just like it all comes from that same point, so there will be a general reflection, which just means the area that I'm leaving light. When I say the reflection, it's just an area that I'm leaving light and doing less pencil lines. That travels around kind of a circular shape around that cowlick. The reason it travels around it is because I've got all the hairs coming out from that point. And in order for that reflection to continue at a 90-degree angle across all the hairs, well, that's the effect of it, is that it travels around in a circle around that. If I had the hair traveling in a different pattern, not all coming out from that same point, then I wouldn't have that circular reflection pattern. So then I'll simplify this because I think it just got too busy, and I'm going to try to go back to the more uniform hairstyle, try to take out some of these little individual clumps. But I mean, you can get crazy and do whatever you want. And I think it would just take a lot longer to do a hairstyle that was made a lot of little spikes or something. Maybe I'll try to tackle that in another video. Here's another thing that's important. So I drew this person's face here, and getting that shadow that follows the contour of the face really helps the hair on the head to look real, like it's an object that's on top of the head rather than just, you know, a flat, you know, it doesn't look like a stamp, like it's just flat. You want it to look like it's resting on top of the head, like it does. So this shadow, notice that the shadow is not as dark as the dark areas of the hair. That's important to remember, because the shadow that the hair casts on the skin is never as dark as the shadow that is on the hair, where the light is not reflecting on the hair. Hair has real dark shadows, especially where it goes down deep, and there's, you know, like where I have it going into the scalp by that cowlick. That'll be the darkest area. You know, on reflective surfaces, the areas that aren't reflecting tend to be really dark. So that'll be the darkest part of my drawing. So I'll draw a shade lighter than that for the shadow around this person's forehead, and you can see it follows the shape of the cheekbone. So you can see I'm messing around with the style of the hair, just trying to get it to look a little more unified so that it actually looks like a real human. This looks like Rihanna with bedhead. So anyway, you can mess around with it, do a whole bunch of stuff, and put a little bit of shadow, make this face look more real. Well, that's basic on kind of the reflective quality. There's probably a lot more technique to talk about. I'll see if I can maybe do another video on this subject. So do a little bit over here. I heard somebody say once, it goes, with art, it goes like this. It goes good, better, best, ruined.